Just because I poke fun at the stories I read and/or fan art featured in my videos doesn't mean that anyone should harass the creators of anything featured in this show. Cyberbullying is a serious issue that damages people emotionally and psychologically, sometimes to the point of self-harm and/or suicide. Please keep any and all criticism constructive and reasonable for all parties involved. Thank you. Hey guys, it's Cat here, bringing you the second episode of the Crappypasta Show. Today's story is Cupcakes with Jeff. Another Jeff the Killer and Pinkie Pie fanfiction, this time going in a different direction. Now let's cut the bullshit and cue the intro, guys. Chapter 1, Arrival. The moment I realized I had fallen, I knew I wasn't on this world anymore. I felt the air around me swirl and my stomach lifted, as if to be a violent roller coaster. I dipped and dodged around the things that fell in with me. Remind me never to piss Sear off again. For being pissed, though, she was still beautiful. The red hair, her curves, and just the way she bosses people around is delicious. Jeff laughed to himself, but I could tell this time I was in real trouble. Pinkie Pie strutted swiftly and happily along the park pathway. She hummed a blissful tune as she hopped along cutely. As she went along her business, she nodded and said hello to her fellow pony friends. She made it back into Ponyville and into the town center where Sugar Cube Corner was located. She went inside to make an order for herself. She came in and greeted the cakes happily and went back into the hallway and into the farthest door. She walked into the door and closed it behind her, locking it. A few hours later, she opened the door, showing her hanging a white apron stained with red upon the coat holder on the wall. She came out of the door with a wooden woven basket that had a bunk covered by a plaid sheet in it. She walked back out of Sugar Cube Corner and back into the park. She set her basket down and took the plaid sheet from the basket, revealing Cupcakes, and laid it out on the field in front of her. Then she took the basket and set it in front of her, shouting out, "Cupcakes! Get free cupcakes made by yours truly!" A crowd came in front of Pinkie Pie as they grabbed a cupcake happily. As the cupcakes disappeared, Pinkie's curiosity peaked. She looked around at the delighted ponies and smiled. These ponies had no idea how truly delicious these cupcakes were to make. The crowd thinned into mere single digits until it was completely gone and Pinkie Pie was left alone once more with her imagination. Her smile started to fade as reality became a blur and a sort of weird urge came over her. As she started to walk away, she heard a loud bang from behind her and a small crackle in the sky, which she assumed was thunder. Then she recalled Rainbow Dash saying that the weather was clear all week because there was a massive thunderstorm due next week. Surprised by this crackle and thinking it might be some kind of trouble considering what's been happening at Equestria lately, she turned around and ran off towards the thunder. As she approached a huge seared spot in the grass, she found a medium-sized colt face down on the spot. He had some kind of jacket on that was partially stained by something dark. He had a black mane and tail and a white body. She couldn't see his cutie mark because of the jacket, the way he had landed covered it. She reached her hoof towards the colt and tapped him gently. Are you okay, Mr. Mystery? Pinkie said in her silly goof voice. The colt groaned and started to wiggle a bit out of place. He breathlessly whispered, What the hell? He rose from his spot, still shuddering from the fall. His long, black, silky hair covered his face. However, Pinkie Pie was too curious to go by for long without seeing it. That's the last time I pissed Natasha off. Ow, he said, still hurting. Hello? Who the hoof are you and where'd you come from? Pinkie Pie asked curiously. Jeff complained and looked up at Pinkie Pie. He told it back in surprise. Oh my fuck, it's a pony? A pink pony? That talks? What the fuck is this? And what the fuck are you? He asked Pinkie. A pony? Like you? Pinkie replied, turning her head sideways at the still hair-covered white colt. Jeff looked down at his non-existent hands to find that they had been replaced with hooves. Jumping back once more at this, he thought back to himself about falling through the portal the seer had created earlier. This must be where she sent me. Wherever here is. Hey, pink pony, where am I? In Ponyville, of course, she said, laughing back at him with a snort. Jeff flinched at her piercingly annoying laugh. And where the hell is that? He asked back at her. Well, Equestria, silly? Are you okay in the head there, mister? Pinkie Pie asked, slightly confused at his lesser knowledge of the place he must have been born and raised in. I'm not even gonna ask, Jeff said. Hey, what's your name anyways? I haven't seen you there before, Pinkie asked, scooching closer towards Jeff's face. At this, he turned away from Pinkie Pie and grunted. He stood finally, still hiding his face in his massive black hair. Jeff, he told her. Just Jeff? That's it? But it's so boring and abnormal, Pinkie said back to Jeff. Well, where I come from, it's a perfectly normal name, Jeff shouted back at Pinkie Pie. He wanted to go away from this annoying bitch of a pony and get out of there, but seeing as he had no clue about anything in this world or where to go, or if he could even let anyone know who he really was, he decided to put up with this horrifying pony so he'd get out of here faster. He just wished she was a little more knowledgeable about, well, anything. Pinkie Pie got closer to Jeff. She narrowed her eyes and gave him a hard stare. After a moment, she lightened up and jumped around him in circles. Well then, Jeff, if that's your name, then it's a wonderful name. It won't make us any less than friends. My name's Pinkie Pie, if I didn't say earlier. She laughed again. Hey, let's throw you a party so you can get lots of friends, okay? No, he shouted at her. No, I think I'll stick with you for now. Just for a while until I get used to it here, okay? Pinkie stared at Jeff for a second and then smiled. Okie dokie Loki. Well then you need a place to stay. So come with me to Sugar Cube Corner. The cakes have an extra bed you can use, Pinkie Pie said excitedly and began hopping away. Jeff was soon to follow, pulling his hood over his head and then trying to walk as fast and steadily as he could after Pinkie Pie. He still had some getting used to do. After a few minutes of finally firmly trotting around the colorful houses and pathways that Ponyville had in store, he spotted a particularly sweet-looking building. It looked as if it was made of candy. He made a pretty good guess as to which building it was. Then he guessed right because Pinkie Pie had hopped to the door, opening it for Jeff. As Jeff carefully walked into the sweet-smelling shop, Pinkie Pie noticed his cutie mark. A knife, and a bloody one too. A bit alarmed by this, the weird feeling from earlier came back, but this time stronger. She disregarded this feeling as her pinky sense and walked in behind Jeff. She still wondered, though, about what his special talent was, although she had her suspicions. Jeff and Pinkie walked inside, and as they did, a bell sounded from the opening door, and Mrs. Cake came out to greet the two of them. "Hello, Pinkie Pie. Are you here to play with Pumpkin and Pound Cake today?" the blue and pinky swirly-haired pony asked.
"No, ma'am. Today I have a new friend that needs somewhere to stay. His name is Jeff. He doesn't talk a lot, though."
Mrs. Cake looked at Jeff and nodded at Pinkie Pie. "Unfortunately, Trixie is staying in the last available room for the rest of the week. Pinkie's room is large enough where we could scooch in another bed into and put up curtains for privacy," Mrs. Cake said. Jeff didn't seem to protest the idea. In fact, he looked almost as if he didn't care at all.
"Well, Jeffy?"
Pinkie asked. 1, don't call me that. 2, sure, I don't care, Jeff said. Mrs. Cake shivered and smiled. "Oh, serious, isn't he?" she laughed. As Pinkie Pie and Jeff were beginning to walk off, Mrs. Cake gasped and squealed. Jeff and Pinkie turned at this alarm. "Pinkie Pie, your friend's cutie mark. It's a knife. A bloody knife. Just what exactly does he do?" Mrs. Cake asked, with an almost scared look on her face. Pinkie Pie shrugged and looked at Jeff, expecting an answer. I'm a butcher. Yeah, a butcher. For the wolves, yeah, nasty creatures. Too bad my village has to feed those wolves, but my original talent is making props." Both of them sighed in relief. Pinkie Pie shouted for Jeff to follow her, and they went upstairs. Chapter 2, Partner in Cupcakes. After a few hours, the room was set up as 2 separate ones. Pinkie Pie had brought some cakes and goodies up for Jeff to snack on, and of course, he helped himself to them. He was beginning to appreciate the persistence of this pink pony. As Jeff was finishing stuffing himself full of goodies, Pinkie Pie brushed the curtain open and looked in at the bloated colt. She walked over to him and asked him a question in a very serious manner.
"Jeff, you're not a butcher or a prop maker, are you?"
Pinkie Pie's eyes looked down on him, almost screaming at him, as if to make himself only able to say the truth. "No, I'm not, Pinkie," Jeff said seriously. He pulled a knife out of his jacket and started to laugh. "You see, my dear, I am a killer. My full name is Jeff the Killer. I kill to satiate my bloodlust, but recently for money." Jeff paused. Pinkie Pie's pupils shrunk with a nervous face. Started to sweat. She opened her mouth to say something but closed it. She saw his face for the first time. White, red lips torn beyond repair. His eyes lined with black, not blinking. That weird feeling she had before came back. "But now that you know, I guess I'll just have to help you go to sleep," Jeff said, dashing towards the pink pony. Slam! Jeff had driven Pinkie Pie against the wall, but to his surprise, Pinkie had grabbed his hooves and stopped the knives from penetrating her chest and abdomen. His eyes widened. This pony wasn't the same as a second ago. Pinkie Pie started to sinisterly laugh. She overpowered the unready Jeff. She yanked one of the 2 knives from Jeff's hooves and pushed them back.
"I'm more than meets the eye, Jeffy."
Pinkie Pie had turned a darker gray shade of pink, and her hair was no longer bushy and curly. Instead, it had turned smooth, almost like a liquid. When she smiled, her teeth now looked sharper than average. Jeff was a bit shocked at this alter ego. For a perky pink pony, she was really dark now. Found this new development, well, delicious. One thing or two of them had in common. Jeff slowly lifted himself. He stared at Pinkie Pie. She suspected he was going to dash at her again with the knife, but to her surprise, his shocked face turned upwards. His look slowly turned from a shocked look into a psychotic smile. He started to laugh. Pinkie Pie, I honestly underestimated you. I thought you were just an annoying, pink, gay pony with a baby face. But now that you've gone all psycho, I'm starting to appreciate you more. And you're kind of a doll, Jeff said, inching closer to Pinkie's face. Pinkie Pie giggled a little.
I'm not Pinkie Pie, Jeffy. The Pinkie Pie you know is lost inside her own mind. Refer to me as Pinkamena,
she said, nudging her snout against Jeff's. Pinkie Pie dropped the knife in her hoof and sighed.
Now thanks to you, Jeffy, I have a bloodlust. So later tonight, I'll have to make myself some cupcakes. As your punishment, you have to help me. We could be partners in cupcakes, Pinkamena laughed. Jeff understood this phrase. He looked at her curiously. Oh, don't worry, Jeffy. You'll like it. I'm just glad that arrogant bitch Twilight isn't there. She'd be the only one who would question my hair and attitude. Hey, I think I got a target in mind. Not slut. Rarity. Would make some delicious cupcakes.
Pinkamena laughed and smiled. Jeff now had a hint at what she might be talking about, but considering he found she was basically the female version of himself, he wasn't quite sure if it was some facade of insanity or randomness. With this, Jeff stood. Alright, sweet cheeks, I'll give it a shot. Might as well wait till Seer finds me anyways. Let's be partners in cupcakes. For now. Jeff laughed. And that's the end. I actually had to do this in 2 separate recordings to keep my vocal cords from going kaput. Luckily, in the next episode, I'll be turning away from Jeff the Killer fanfiction by reading The Woman in the Theater, whose title is in all caps, and Burner, another shitty killer story, this time without Jeff the Killer. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.